Welcome back to another episode, another show on the Entrepreneurial Athlete Podcast, everyone. Today is a special one. We do have another guest that I can't wait to introduce you to him. Um, but first, if you are new tuning in, this is a show where we talk to former athletes now transition into entrepreneurship to share all about their journey, what led them into wanting to step out on their own and start their own business. So I do look forward to conversations like this because this is an opportunity for me to also learn from other people's journey as well. And if this is your first time tuning in and listening to this podcast, ooh, listen, look at that. I have it my earring fell out. But if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Felicia. I am your host for this show, and I am a business coach where I help business coaches transition into starting their own business as well. So today I look forward to introducing Tony. Tony, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here
Thank you for
and
having me
talking
on.
to us.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I'm starting this new thing here where I ask all of the guests essentially what is one skill that you essentially learned as from being an athlete that helped you transition into having a thriving entrepreneurship and having your own business.
Right. I think it's adaptability. I think that being able to adapt to the different um, environments that you're in, game time, where you're having to make adjustments, whether, if you have a receiver that you're covering and maybe they put you on another receiver and being able to adapt and not complain and be able to transition to the next part of it and being able to stay focused on the task that you have uh, before you.
Yeah, that's crucial because in business you have to learn to go with, like, you have to adapt, right? Because one day your marketing strategy may work where the next day you got to figure out
Right.
what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
For
Absolutely.
sure. I 100% can relate to that. So let's take us back, right? I know you played football at you started out at Mars Hill University. So did you always know football was your sport, or did you have to kind of figure that out as life was, in the beginning stages of your life?
Right. So, in high school, well, if I go back to seventh grade, right, that was not actually I played defensive end. I was just that's crazy. That's a whole yeah, that was crazy. But by ninth grade, I was a running back and I was actually starting on the varsity team. And at that point, it was, I fell in love with the game of football. So at that point, I felt like, hey, what's the next level? So, put that time in and dedication to the game of football, learning the game of football. So what ended up happening was that, you go through the summer workouts and all that great stuff, and you play the game, and you go through all those components of the game, and you know you just kind of ride that wave into that next phase. So, that next phase was to get in, to go to college and to play college football.
Nice, nice. And so did you start playing football I guess in middle school, or were you always playing football?
Okay, so I'm from Mississippi. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So in Mississippi, I'm pretty sure, like everywhere else, you play backyard ball. So, you're in the backyard and, you throw the football up in the air and, whoever catches it, you got to do some dancing or some moves to get to whatever you've designated as the touchdown line. So it started there with just cousins and, neighborhood people just playing the game of football, but it was not, it was just something that you did. And from a small town, so it was one of those things where, okay, this is something you just participate in because you're one of the boys in the school, so we need you out there on the football field. That's kind of how it started out. My father played high school football, but it was not, it was no pressure, that you got to go out, sit down and talk to you like, okay, now you want, I want you to go play football. It was never that, nothing at all. So you just kind of develop this sense of belonging to the game.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Tony, but where I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. So I will say that I always knew that basketball was my thing. My mom put me in basketball at the age of 4, and she said that
Mhm.
I never looked back.
Yeah.
And so I knew early on that my aspiration was pro. Like that's what I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
didn't make it pro, but that's what I wanted to do.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah.
But though I will say that I knew basketball was my only way out of Ohio. And I don't know if that was for you, where it was like you had to use your sport to, kind of get out of your circle. Was it similar, or how was that for you?
So, I knew for me, I was the first person in my immediate family to get the college degree, but it was no pressure from my parents to, um, they kind of instilled things in us as, as children along the way, and you kind of had that right to make your own decision, but you just knew, okay, it's almost like, I don't know if you remember the old, tapes, the
Mm-hmm.
cassette tapes where you
Mm-hmm.
had it was wound
Yep.
up. It was not like it was the end of the track. So I knew that I had more football in me, and I knew I wanted to go play football. And it gave me an opportunity. Although I had the academics, I did go to a junior college at first because I know better now. But you just didn't know, okay, I can go to this school in my area, but you always had the D1 in your head. And
Mm-hmm.
and the local college for us was Ole Miss, and another college would have been Mississippi State. And didn't get any offers from them. So, you kind of like, so then you go to junior college and it's like it was a new level to the game for me because from being the guy in the school where you're scoring a touchdown, you get the awards and all that other stuff. Cool, everybody's cheering for you. Now you're going and it's 99 other people that have that same track record and you have to develop. So, to your question, it was the way out, but like all of that stuff was not on my mind. It was just like, how do I adapt to
Mm-hmm.
99 other people in the case where defensive back was like 20 people? How do you adapt and get on the team and continue playing football? Because that was within my mind, that was like the only option.
Ooh, that's a good point because I know when I went there, I transitioned right from high school to college. And I think it was like not a culture shock necessarily, but I was a little bit naive because you go from like being pretty decent, right, in high school to, okay, like you're in college. And I did go D1, and it was just like, well, all these, you can't rely on just your talent here. Like we all good.
Right. Yeah.
We all good. And so I know for me, it did take some time. I had a lot of growing up to do,
Right.
a lot mentally, and more so like your talents isn't going, it's not going to take you nowhere. Like we just going, we going to live right here, and you're not going to play because this is where the hard work, well, it should have began before that, but we really got to put in the hard work here.
Right. Because you
um
don't,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, continue,
Yeah,
continue.
yeah. So you don't know. You don't, because when it depends on how large your school was, you don't have this comparison that, okay, you may see another team and you compare their player, but when you're being the leader on your team or one of the leaders on the team, it's, you know, who do you compare yourself to? Who do you talk to? You talk to some of the old heads. Well, some of the old heads were not necessarily going in the same direction, right? So they were not they they were on, what we call the hill, and they kind of talked about what they did. But when you talk about the community college, the community college that I went to was called Northwest Community College, and at that time, this is a very famous coach, Bobby Franklin, and it's 100 people out there, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that okay, I'm talented and I can run fast, but it was a whole nother mental game that I had to learn, right? So you got people that are coming in, and the thing in junior college is if they're a D1 coming back to junior college, they're playing, no question. So you have to go through all of that mental anguish. That's what
Yeah.
like, I'm playing hard too. But no, they're in there and they can make mistakes, and it's like it's okay. But when you make a mistake, it's like World War III when you make a mistake. It was like, what's this? Where did this come from?
Now you talking about some stuff that I had to really heal from because you know that is true, right? Where the star players are able to, make the mistakes and all of that. But when for me, when I go in, it is like I get taken out right away. And that messed my mental up a lot. And honestly that crushed my confidence.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm so big on like now knowing that like I know a coach is more than this, but also one of the layers a coach can do is supposed to be speaking life into you, right? And I felt like in college I didn't have that. I've always had that in high school, I've always had that in middle school and all that, where I had a coach that believed in me.
right. Yeah,
But the moment that I got to college, and you have moments where it's like I make a mistake, I get snatched out, it killed my confidence, and
yeah,
my self-esteem, and it just plummeted. And I fell into such a like, oh, the coaches is, I don't like the coaches, it's their fault, I'm
right.
not going to work out more, because why should I put in all this extra time when you're not even going to at least give me a chance? And then I develop, a victim
Right.
which is like, a woe's me, is everybody's fault but my own, and so I really had to heal from that. It took some years after college, honestly, for me to realize my fault in it.
Mhm.
But you speaking a real thing though, because I think coaches sometimes, if you don't understand the basically what I'm trying to say is like, coaches have this authority over
Yeah.
an athlete's or any situation, a person's life. And I feel like if you don't nurture that, you will do some damage to that person. And I take that very very seriously now. But that's just my experience. I don't know how you feel about like just coaches and a athlete dynamic, but that's
I mean, kind of switching to the coaching stage of my life. Um, you know, we have to heal and address some of those areas because if you're not healed, you end up doing the same behavior to your players. So you have to go and really address it and say, okay, all right, am I yelling at this player in the same way? Am I behaving in the same way? Because you learn behaviors, right? Even though you're hurt, you learn behaviors. So then you model that behavior that because it's the only thing you know. So one thing about me as a coach, I had to establish this whole idea of putting the players in the best place possible, right? So that's during the season. But another thing that happened that I learned later was developing their mental clarity to where now they have the ability to make decisions where if they don't have it right now, I can't approach them in that manner because they're not mature enough to handle the way that I may talk to a senior or a junior. I'm going to talk to them in a way because my expectation is is up here because you're more mature. So I have this different expectation. I'm gonna stop there. I
Yeah.
don't want to hog up the time and allow you to get your questions.
No, no, I mean, I think that's a good point to get across because I actually it's funny that we're having this conversation now because I was listening to another podcast where they did talk about how you do have to coach, you can't coach 15 different players the exact same way. Right. It's too many different personalities. You might yell at one coach or one player, but they cave in where the other player can actually, you rile them up, get something out of them, and if you're not cognizant of that, if you aren't aware of that, you can do some damage to the player. And I have seen it, like not just for myself, but I have seen it in different players too. I didn't have the intellect then to comprehend what was really going on,
Mm-hmm.
but that is for sure a real thing. But so let's transition now, right? Of course you're playing college, and then now you are out of college, right? And so what's the we're going to get into really your entrepreneurial, like that journey, but what made you want to start your own thing and start your business? Well, actually, I know you have several businesses.
So it took me a while because I had the mindset early on is do 25, retire, and that was my mindset. I'm gonna coach 20, I'm gonna teach and coach for 25 years or 30 years or whatever. Then I retire and go, and enjoy the rest of my life. Um, and that happened for about 12 years. And then I was introduced to entrepreneurship. I was introduced the whole time, but I guess I finally just really opened my mind up to it. And I realized that people have different tracks that they can take. And that's a track, and people are going to take it. Don't bash it. But then there's another track where you can have ownership of the path. And I'm using the ownership kind of really loosely right there. Entrepreneurship puts me in a better place where I'm not trading time for money. And when I got that understanding, because if you do 8 hours, and let's say you're getting paid $30 an hour, all right? 8 hours, 30, that's $240 a day. Okay. Okay, give me 2 more hours. I'm capped off at some point where even if I'm a hard worker, I'm going to get tired. And then what starts to happen is over time, my body wears down. And now, at the end of 25 years, I'm tired, right? Even before that. So, gaining that understanding that entrepreneurship is just a different lane. And that different lane gives me the opportunity to not just trade my time for money. Now I can put things in place that allow me to make finances while I sleep. And that's a big difference there. And that was a transition that, you know, that I'm extremely happy that I made, because what it did for me was it allowed me to not put myself in just a box. Even if someone paid me the more money, if it's time for money, it doesn't necessarily work out. I'm thankful for that time period. So I don't want to sound like, you know, man, that was just the worst time. No, I'm thankful because that kept me during the time that I needed to keep me. But then later, you got to take a different path.
Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that. I think I honestly didn't realize that until I met my husband. Well, we were dating then. But I when what I grew up and learned, go to college, get a good job, or go to college, get a good degree, then get a good job,
Right.
and then you just work, right?
Yep.
And that's what I knew until I met my husband, where he showed me something totally different, which is funny because now my family, we're all entrepreneurs, but I didn't grow up that way, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting how life happens. But he was the first person that really showed me that it's more than just working your job. And so he would say all the things that you're saying, where it's just like he never saw himself working for 20, 30, 40 years at for somebody else, right? Where now you are trading your time for income and all of that. And so I want to ask you, was it someone, did you have to read about that to learn? Did you get around a community? Like, how did you learn that?
Right. So I was in an organization. I was in a company where, and this happened around 2015. Now, granted, now my mother and father, like, oh my goodness, they worked their behinds off for me. I have a sister and I have a brother. They worked, oh my goodness. They modeled, I got my work ethic from them, right? So they showed me that. And you know, what ended up happening in 2015, I transitioned between not necessarily careers. I moved from the classroom to actually becoming a consultant. And it was a different pathway, becoming a consultant, because if you didn't work, you
You don't get
didn't
paid.
get paid.
Yep.
So I ventured off into another company, and that company exposed me to this whole idea of entrepreneurship. And I started to get in the community. And at first, it was hard because it was like I had to break a mindset that it was so ingrained in me, like work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, go work hard right here, go work hard right here. But then it shifted to saying, now you got to start setting up systems. Now you got to start thinking about, okay, what are you putting in place so that your children would have something if you're gone? What is your mindset concerning money? Does money really have the value that you're giving it? That's a whole mindset shift that really took me, man, like 3, 4 years to really transition out of that mindset that hey, let me work very hard. When I work very hard, I get the hard worker award. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I had to transition out of that, because if you get that award, it's meaningless because
Oh man.
everybody's gonna get the same. If you work 8 hours, you're both getting paid $30 an hour, you get the same amount. So yeah, like, and I don't want those that are listening to this to think that I'm devaluing the characteristic of hard work. I'm not, because that's what got me there. But I think you have to transition to something different at some point.
Yeah, I know. Um, I didn't really understand like the concept of, and I don't want to go down this road too much, but like the school system, right, teaches us to be an employee. And I really didn't realize that until I started getting around different circles.
Yeah.
And I really had to think back, where it's like nothing wrong with the school system. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying anything is wrong with being an employee, right? So I think everybody isn't meant to be a full-time entrepreneur, right? Like, let me just get that out there. But at the same time, if you do have a desire to want to start your own thing and be an entrepreneur, and I mean a full-time
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you do have to unlearn like what it truly means, right? Like, I
Yeah.
know for me, like, yeah, I go to work 8 hours, I get that paycheck, whatever that hourly salary, or that hourly rate is, right? That's what I get paid. And it's totally different. Stepping out on your own is not like that, right? Where now you are getting paid based off of what benefit you are giving your client, right? What is that transformation that you are providing? And it could look like sky's the limit. Let me just say that. So,
Yeah. Right.
you
Right.
know,
Oh, absolutely.
so I mean, I think the first moment where I made that dollar online,
Hmm.
and it was like it didn't take a lot, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, this is different."
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember that moment for you when you like you spent all these years working for someone else or even being a consultant? Do you remember that first dollar you made where it was just like, okay, now I see the vision?
So, God, it's layered because it's different moments. So, in terms of the consultant role, you're independent consultant and you're contracted out, and the money that I made at that particular point was uh, mind blowing because I was making more in 6 months, and I was well 3, 4 months, and I was making in a whole year in the classroom. So it was a shift um, whenever that started, because then you have to shift from the paycheck to paycheck mindset because you have a lump sum of money, and you have to look at it, that you're getting a lot of money in this small amount of time, but you're not going to work. You're not working these next, 3, 4 months. So you got to make sure you have this money in place to make sure that this sustains you this whole time. That's one phase. Another phase was that once I stepped into entrepreneurship, mentioned part time, sitting down and talking to someone for 30 minutes, and then I go do the task, and I'm making $100. It's like 30 minutes, $100. Like it's like I'm using my skill set that I used in the classroom, that I learned in college, that I learned as becoming an educator, and I'm using this over here. And it's like, hold up, Houston, we got a problem. There's a disconnect somewhere here because I got to go spend, 30 minutes is half a class in the classroom. It's half a class, they're not going to pay you. Now I'm able to go make $100 for even less than 30 minutes by going and providing someone with services so that they can go outside of the country. Like, okay, this is different. So that was an adjustment that I had to make at that point. So when I got that first check to allow someone to go to a trip or go to a place I'd never been, yeah, it was a like what's really going on here? So yeah, that was a moment. I'm
Yeah.
kind of trying to smooth it over, but yeah, that was a moment. Yeah.
So let's I know we are talking about your journey, but I'm sure it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine. Were there moments of where you just wanted to, hey, let me just go back. I need to hang this up. This is too rough. I didn't sign up for this.
Right. It's been moments, even, back then when I started, it's been moments 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's moments where you get used to, like, consistency is a powerful action, right? So if something's just consistent, you don't necessarily have to worry about it. Like at the end of the week or the end of the month, your employee, no matter how much time you spend, you getting a check. So you know, you don't realize it, but you depend on just this consistency that's happening. This money gonna come in. I ain't got to worry about it. So there were times where I had to build up my muscle, my mental muscle, and develop this clarity about this. Where am I putting, going back to this whole idea, am I putting systems in place? Am I putting things in place in order to set myself up to be successful? Because just because you get the money doesn't mean it's you successful. So then you have to go back to start developing yourself to understand what your self-worth is. So that's another aspect of it, that you can get the money and then you will attach yourself to the money, but that's not the right order, right? So the order is understanding what your worth and your value is so that it gets to a point where you know what not to choose. So that's a whole conversation right there of understanding that, can you turn down $100 and understand that, okay, there's a better opportunity that's right here for you. So that takes some growing up.
That's you brought up several good points there, but I want to take us back. I want to bring up the point where you said that you have to build systems, right? So for someone, right, listening, where they might not necessarily know maybe what systems they need to establish, right? So like, can you walk us through like what type of systems should someone set up, or what should they do in their life where it's like, okay, now they're starting to think about, okay, maybe I need to do, is it like a morning routine? I don't, or is that type of system that you are referring to?
So, yeah, so that's one facet of it. So you can have how you manage your day. And I hate to use the word manage. It's how you steward your day. So somebody telling you to go at 8 o'clock to do this task, 8:30 go do this task. It's easy because someone's telling you. But when you get your time back, you have to be very mindful of it, that your time is valuable because you don't get that back. So what you have to do is, okay, in the morning time, when I wake up, what am I doing? At 8 o'clock, what am I doing? So I map my day out that I'm not just doing something, but I'm being intentional about, okay, I got to pick a part of my day that I am reading. For me, it's biblical principles, making sure that I have biblical principles so that I have my core values established, so that when I'm able to make decisions, they're not just decisions based on emotions, but they're decisions that are sound, understanding that it's going to work out, or it's getting and listening to some thought leader that is where I'm wanting to go. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect of systems is this: what am I building in terms of for my boy? Well, I got two boys. Okay, let me say that. What am I building for them? What am I putting in place for them that if I die? That eventually that's gonna happen. I'm gonna die. What am I putting in place in order for them to have something that is that they're able to continue living? So those are some examples of it. There are definitely more of even within your business, of working smarter and not harder, and understanding that things come at a price, but be smart with the price you're going to pay
Mm-hmm.
to get what you're trying to get. So yeah, those are some examples.
Yeah, and those are great. I know, like, I'm not a full-time entrepreneur just yet. It's coming. But I am acting as if now, right? Like I am putting the systems in place where I have to be intentional with my time. You have two boys, I have two small girls, and I don't, I don't, how old are your boys, by the way?
13 and 8.
Okay. 8. So they are much older than mine. Mine are going to be 4 and 2. So any parent that has small children, right? Like your time is literally all theirs. um, so now I have to work on where it's like, okay, in the morning, my oldest is going to school, right? So like I have to get my workout in. So I'm waking up earlier to get my workout in. Okay, I'm taking care of her. Then after I'm working after that, take her to school, I'm working. And I do have my youngest at home, but luckily I have help. But I'm working. Okay, now it's after work. Now, what does that look like? And being intentional in that, right? Because it's like, okay, a block of my time I am going to dedicate to family. And then after 7, it could look like just all business, right? And I do want to say that because there might be someone listening out there that is juggling a business and family and just all the things, their work, but it's so important to be intentional with your time now so that when you do leave your job, you know what to do with, like, how to structure your day, right? Of course it'll be a little different or whatever the case may be, but you have to put in the actions now if you want to have whatever, freedom can look different for anyone, for anybody, but if that freedom looks like leaving your job. So you brought it. That was a really, really good point about being very intentional.
Could I insert something that I think is, and I don't know why I did not say this, because this is at this stage of my life, it is a high priority. Of course, my wife is dynamic. She's just awesome with the boys. But one of the things that I was very intentional about from August of last year up until now is developing relationships. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If your children don't know you, that's a whole nother conversation. So that goes back to the whole idea of self-worth. And everybody doesn't necessarily get that opportunity. And I'm having this opportunity to connect with my boys and really get to know who they are, because you can again have this work ethic that you pride yourself on, but you can win outside, but you can lose at home. And I think business wise, that's something that you really have to look at. No amount of money is worth losing what you produced. The money is replaceable. Time is not, that you have with your children. So I should have said that earlier, but anyway, thank you for that opportunity to insert that, because I think that is super important, the life of your children.
Yep, 100%. I also believe that with health as well, right? Because if you don't take care of your health, you can't do what you want to do, you know? And so that's why I pride myself on. Honestly, I think it's very important on understanding what your pillars are, right? Right? Like your core values.
Yep.
Mine is, faith, family, my health, and then business, and then other things, but those are my main pillars, right? So I
Yep.
prioritize that throughout my day. Like I'm always going to be reading my scripture of the day or whatever book I'm reading within the Bible. I'm always going to make sure I'm eating healthy and all the things, making sure I'm healthy, because I want to be here for the long, as long as I can, as long as God want to bless me. I
Right.
want
No,
to be on this
absolutely. I'm with you. Yeah.
you know and then also, yeah, and like you said, right, because I know me personally, I can get so caught up in my goal, especially with business. My goal, like I want to leave my job, right? And so
Mhm.
like I actually had to catch myself. This is like a real transparent moment here, where I use my office is downstairs, and so I get working and all the things, and so sometimes my daughters will knock on the door. They're young, right? So they don't know, like, oh, don't get into this. And, mommy's focusing. They just want mommy, right?
Right.
And so I kind of had to check myself because I caught myself being a little frustrated,
Yeah.
like, they're interrupting my space. And so anyway, I don't want to take us too far off this rabbit hole here, but I was like, I don't ever want my girls to feel like they are a distraction,
Right. Yep.
or like, because that's what I'm building this for them,
Yep.
but at the same time, these are moments that I can't get back. And so I need to make sure that they know that I don't care. You can come into my space, sit on my lap and I'm going to work, so I had to check myself on that, you know, but
It's all good. It's all
but anyways, okay. So Tony, right? What is like as we're gonna wrap up here in a minute, like what is one thing that you really want like the audience to take away from this moment? What do you want them to get from what you're talking about today?
right. To establish their priorities, right? So really go back and look at, what are your priorities? And once you look at what your priorities are, weigh them out, and then really structure your life around what they are. And if you look at what you prioritize and you say, you know what, man, I don't really value that, then you need to go ahead and make a shift. You need to adapt, because what you can end up doing is you can, how do I want to put this? You can, let me shift a little bit. I don't need to go in that direction. Let me shift a little bit. So, and this whole idea of priorities, once you establish what they are, start building your life around that. If you don't, you live in discontentment because then you start to compare yourself. And one of the ways to combat comparison is really establishing, what I shared earlier is about your core values. As an athlete, one of the things that one of my high school coaches, I hated it, was when we came into the weight room, we did 50 sit-ups. I hated it. I hated sit-ups. Another coach that came in was focused in on the back. Those are your cores. And if your core is not right, no, doesn't really matter what's happening on the other parts of your body. So you got to get the core right. Get the core. What's your core values? Center that around, get that correct, and spend more time with that than it is working on the other stuff. So if you're listening, get the core values right.
I love that. I love that. And so, Tony, what do you have going for yourself? I know you have a podcast of your own. Like, tell us what do you have right now going for you?
So right now I have a series. I got several series going on. I don't know if that's okay, but I got it going on. One is in particular is 50 educators from 50 states, and then it's interviewing educators from uh, every state in the union. All right, I don't think it's the union. All the states, 50 of them. I'm interviewing and it's kind of multiple ones based on the size of the state, and it's just having conversations about transformation, and it's just allowing what's happening in their world, and they're sharing it, and it's the hopes that when they share their story, that it would encourage someone to live a transformed life. That's one facet. Another facet is transforming classrooms. Math classroom is another facet. It's just talking to math teachers. And another one that's coming out that I've kind of messed with for a while is educators turn entrepreneurs. So that's something that, in fact, I think one of your guests that was on earlier,
Yeah.
She's going to head up on Wednesday. I think I'm going to release her podcast episode on next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the next Wednesday. Just
Oh, that's
talking about
good.
entrepreneurs. Yeah,
Yeah, I love
entrepreneurs.
that. I love that. Okay, so if someone is an educator and they want to talk to you, maybe even be on your podcast, how can they find you?
Right. So Instagram, Coach Tony Kimble. Um, reach out. Transforming Lives Podcast at gmail.com. I'm pretty frank, straightforward with people. Reach out. I'll let you know. Reach out. I'm on every platform that's social. I'm there. It's going to be Coach Tony Kimble. Facebook. I don't do too much on TikTok, nor Twitter threads. It will be the same name. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, y'all, I will make sure that that information is all in the description below. But honestly, y'all.
No. Or is it me?
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, y'all, I accidentally muted myself. I'm having
Uh,
tech. Anyways,
it's
you
all
wouldn't
good.
think I work in IT as much challenge I am
It
with
doesn't
tech stuff.
matter. I, trust me, I do this. I understand. Trust.
Right. Yeah,
Trust.
I am definitely going to insert those oopsies. You just anyways, fun moments to look back on. Um but no, seriously, y'all, please check out Tony on all the socials. Hit him up if you are definitely want to have a conversation, as well as if you're an educator yourself and you're just looking to transition into entrepreneurship. He is your guy. He has done it himself. So please reach out to him. But for those that are looking for, if you are yourself a former athlete and you have also transitioned into entrepreneurship, I would also love to talk to you and have you on this podcast so you can also share your story. But in the meantime, y'all, I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.